evening, everyone. I'll call the meeting to order, and we'll have a roll call, please.
Mayor Kavanaugh,
Here.
Vice Mayor Brown,
Here.
Councilmember Leger,
Here.
Councilmember Tolis,
Here.
Councilmember Magazine,
Here.
Councilmember DePorter.
Here.
Nobody wanted to come.
Number one is consideration of approving the town council meeting minutes from May 1st, May 21st, and June 5th, 2018. Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Okay. Motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mayor 6-0.
For items 2 and 3, there'll be one staff report. With that, I will open the public hearing to receive comments on Resolution 2018-31, granting a one-year extension to the Hemingway Planned Area Development zoning designation, approved by Ordinance 15-05 and Special Use Permit SU 2015-06 to allow an assisted living facility on 5.75 acres located at 9700 North Saguaro Boulevard, AKA APN number 17610-811, case SU 2015-06. Grady?
Thank you.
Started.
Mayor and council, the item before you tonight will be, the staff report will be given by Senior Planner Marissa Moore. With that, I'll go ahead and have her commence the presentation.
Thank you, Grady. Mayor, council. Before you is a request for a one-year extension for the Hemingway PAD at 9700 North Saguaro Boulevard. I do want to start the presentation with a letter that we received from the applicant requesting that, who is also the property owner, requesting that either this item go forward with his request for a one-year extension or that it be continued until a date certain, specifically for September. I'm talking right into it. I guess I need to talk louder?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry. The applicant has submitted a letter requesting that either his request for the extension be approved or, at council's discretion, that this hearing be continued to a date certain for September 2018. This is just a very basic image of the site plan. It's the landscape plan. To remind everyone, the Hemingway is a 10 one-story buildings, 101,000 square foot footprint, 90 parking spaces, 112 assisted living units, 22 independent living units, and all buildings would have a maximum height of 23 feet 6 inches. Again, some renderings of the different architectural styles and materials of the proposed buildings. If the extension is approved, construction would need to be commenced by May 21st, 2019, so in 1 year from the extension date, or another one-year extension request could be made by that date. All development activity must comply with the approved PAD. If any changes to that PAD were to be made, they would have to go through the public hearing process. They would not be able to be done administratively by staff. If the extension is not granted, the town council may make a motion to revert the property back to the C1 base zoning, removing all conditions of the PAD from future development. The caveat to this is that if they bring forth a site plan that meets all of the basic zoning requirements, there will be no public hearings. It would be done administratively in-house.
Okay.
And I did want to go, we had some questions that came up today about the projects. I didn't want to go over every single detail, but I wanted to touch on a few things. There's a question about the ownership, the applicant and the owner.
Yeah, just so the council knows, everybody received this information in their packet, and I had some questions, and after Marissa answered my questions, I thought it would be best if she just went ahead and gave a presentation about the document that we have and information that she has, rather than we ask her a lot of questions, which you could anyway, but I think this will cover a lot of it. Go ahead.
Okay. There's a question about the ownership and who the applicant and the owner were. The owner and the applicant are Dan Kaufman. They are the ones who made the application for the extension. The application specifically says an extension for the Hemingway PAD. I've received documentation from the owner showing that Pinnacle View Development is in his name. As far as special use permit extension and zoning variances, while those would be, the zoning ordinance would be applicable in normal circumstances across the town, because this has a PAD, it supersedes these specific requirements for construction within 6 months for a special use permit. And then any variances that were approved in the PAD stick with the PAD for the time limit of the PAD. Any conformity with the general plan, that was a policy decision made by town council at the time that the 2015 Hemingway PAD was approved. And so staff is actually recommending that town council provide us with some direction as to policy, given that the prior, the Hemingway PAD has been approved. At the last council meeting, there was a different senior living facility that was denied. And so we're not making a specific recommendation at this point in time. We're asking for some direction from council.
Okay, so just to be clear, if this is approved, the only thing that can be built is the Hemingway as it was approved by the council previously, and any changes that are made to it, then what happens?
They would have to go through the public hearing process to get any variances or changes to that document.
Okay. Questions for Marissa? Councilman Magazine?
Yeah, Marissa, staff recommended against what we reviewed last time.
I actually staff recommended approval of the senior.
That's right, I'm sorry. Never mind.
Any other questions? Questions from council on the phone for Marissa? Okay, question from Vice Mayor?
So Marissa, I want to make it clear that what we're looking at tonight is exactly what we looked at in 2015 when we originally approved it.
Exactly the same, correct?
Exactly the same.
Yes.
The buildings are the same, the heights are the same, nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, speaker cards, or let me go to the applicant first. The applicant want to make a statement first?
Get a little closer here. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, Dan Kaufman, 16810 Avenue of the Fountains. I've been a resident of Fountain Hills for 25 years. First of all, I want to, I guess, talk about some rumors that are flying around out there, or being spread, and set it straight, which I heard. I grew up in a small farm town in Iowa, and the only mobs I was connected to were the ones at the local county fair trying to get cotton candy. So I just want to, the rumors that are flying around are a little crazy. Let's see, the extension that I'm requesting, the project was approved. We already went over that with the council. And nothing has changed. During that meeting when it was approved, I had two people here, one for the project and then one against it. Wasn't even a neighbor, just wanted to say, here's my feelings about it. So it was unanimously approved through P&Z and council. And I guess what I kind of, I've watched some of the last meeting and that from a couple weeks ago approximately we had that. And I picked up, there was the group, obviously there's a group against the project there. There were several that was brought up about why can't we have the Hemingway instead of this. So right now I'm kind of surprised that they said that, now they're, they're coming against it. It just doesn't make sense. We're going back and forth on this. She's talked about parking. One of the parking requirements was brought up. The city, I'm putting in 3 times what the parking requirements are by the city. Fire approval and all that had to be done prior to the approval. There's questions about the general plan and stuff. changing, but a lot of the market conditions based off of general plans, because the general plan here, I believe, in Fountain Hills is about 10 years old. Market changes, we change. I mean, I used to, 20 years ago, used to have hair, so we're all changing. And that wasn't part of my general plan, but it is what it is. We're all aware that this will go back to C1 if it's not approved. And then at that point, it's commercial, and we're aware of that. You know, as a consul and as a local business owner, I've been here 25 years and have done a lot for the community. And we don't want to drive businesses away. We need, you know, smart growth. You know, I hear it all the time, the old saying in town here that, you know, I've moved here now, let's shut the doors to the growth. We don't want anybody moving here since I'm here now. I hear it all the time. So as council members, we need to be open about positive growth. And I, you know, hope and thank you for your support.
Okay.
Questions?
Questions for the applicant?
Yeah, Mayor, I have a couple questions. With Councilman Leger. Dan, thanks for being here this evening, and I had an opportunity to chat with you when you presented the Hemingway project in the past. I don't want to get too go over the line here, but why did you not proceed with the Hemingway project in the past, and what leads me to believe that you would move forward with it in the future? As you've observed, the new project coming in was met with significant resistance and voted against by the council. So I know there's no guarantee in life, but I'm just curious if you could respond to my some of those questions.
I got some of it.
What do you say?
Why didn't you move forward with the Hemingway before?
Well, one of the things is I had an offer on it once I was getting through I got through my approval. So that took about a year and a half by the time they did their stuff, and obviously that got turned down. So it was tied up for at least that. I have, the other reason is I've been busy. I've got about 600 homes I'm building between here and Colorado. So as a developer, I got so many projects going, and I had an offer on it. So now that it is, you know, obviously it's been declined by the council, and that's, you know, but I want to move forward with it at this time.
Yeah, Councilman Leger, we couldn't hear the other question. Could you repeat it, please?
Sure. Yeah. So Dan, once again, appreciate coming before council. There's no guarantees in life, but what kind of comfort level can you provide me that you personally are going to proceed with the Hemingway project as was approved in the past?
Well, right now, we're aware the Hemingway project has been approved the way it's designed. Obviously, the council has seen another project that they didn't want, but they've approved this. So right now, the project is maintaining the same integrity that was already approved. So nothing else will, obviously we all are aware there will be no other type of assisted living with one building that'll come in. So it's basically just extending the extension so it'll have what we've already approved there.
And would you be involved in this project going forward? Or it sounds like you're pretty busy with other projects.
No, I live here, so I will be personally involved in this project.
Okay. Thank you, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
Any other council questions for the applicant? Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
We'll go to the speakers, please.
Mayor, we have 2 cards submitted by Wendy Muller and Jean Caskey. They do not wish to speak, but they want the council to know they are against the renewal.
Okay.
We have 8 speaker cards, starting with Peter Gray, followed by Joanne Meehan.
Okay.
Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council, my name is Peter Gray, and I'm a resident of Fountain Hills here. I've got a speech prepared, but I'm going to digress a little bit from it. I think the question before us this evening, it's a very different ask than the one we contemplated 3 years ago here. Today, I think we're better informed. I think we understand the goals of the town a little bit better today than we did 3 years ago. And to paraphrase Councilman Magazine from 3 weeks ago, we acknowledge that the citizens rely on our zoning regulations, and as a town, we far too often have granted waivers and variances around them. That doesn't change what happened 3 years ago, but that's what we kind of acknowledge here in present state. What I think is important is that extension hearings, they provide us that rare opportunity for us to employ that hindsight and those lessons learned along the way as we consider the path forward. Tonight, it's not about a group of angry citizens frivolously challenging development in the town of Fountain Hills. We have considered this development, as well with the Fountain Hills Senior Living pad, and this extension at length. We've debated its merits from just about every angle possible. While we appreciate the testimony from the applicant, and we appreciate as well the letter that's in the packet tonight, albeit unsigned from Pinnacle View, stating the Hemingway would be built per the original plan, the pathway to get here tonight, I think we can all admit, is a bit windy. I've not seen anything like this with 2 PADs in front of a Planning and Zoning Commission in my entire career, and I'm in healthcare development. I think the question that I really want to ask is, when do we stop pouring all the energy and resources down the drain and shore this process up? When does a property which is purchased as C1 zoning respect its adjacent landholders, their investments, and finally be required to produce the round peg for the produce the round peg for a development that's a round hole? The challenges this evening, they're rooted in the town's language, and Marissa addressed some of that. I'm a little bit unsure of how that all comes together, because when you look at the town ordinances, a PAD, it says a PAD basically accepts the variances that are requested with the PAD, but it doesn't say you can deviate from all of the other ordinances that are on the book. So 3 phrases as my time's running out here as to why I'm skeptical personally. CA Ventures, the party who made the extension application, stated in our community meetings that this was as designed was a revenue loser in their pro forma. So why are we doing it? Mr. Nick Woods, the self-identified legal representation for the owner, stated at this podium 3 weeks ago that Hemingway was not built over the last 3 years because it is plain and simple a bad design. So again, the same question. So I think in closing, tonight we have to ask ourselves again as a town, with the rule book open in front of us, if we're going to walk over our ordinances without a glance, or if we want to treat them as guidelines for how business is conducted in this town. Our answer is guaranteed to determine if we're going to allow another square peg to be hastily wedged into the proverbial round hole here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Joanne Meehan, followed by Larry Myers.
Mayor, council members, what was then is not aligned with town plan or strategy today. I respect Mr. Kaufman's residency here. I too have lived here over 35 years. I'm going to reference Ordinance 2303, permitted uses. Any use or combination of uses may be allowed in a PAD, provided such uses are A, consistent with the town of Fountain Hills general plan, and B, identified as permitted uses upon approval of the PAD and the accompanying development plan. Section 2306, general requirements and standards, conformance with general plan. The design and land uses in the land proposed PAD shall be consistent with the town's general plan and any applicable area-specific plans. The property and functional use is no longer consistent with the town general plan or strategy. It's also better known as the strategic plan, to which you are obligated to adhere. Whether you have been deceived or intentionally misled is a moot point. We urge you to take heed of our numerous valid concerns as outlined by our group. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next.
Larry Myers, followed by Alinka Ziermont.
Mayor, Councilman, I'm Larry Myers, 37-year resident. This parcel, throughout its history, has propagated a continual stream of misdirection fed to the town by those seeking to profit at the expense of the town and its citizens, thus encouraging our elected leaders, yourselves, to sell one piece of the town's soul at a time to banks, developers, and the landowners at the expense of the citizens. Notwithstanding the fact that proper development is no small matter and at times can be complicated, rules are rules. The town adopts such guidance, memorializes it for us all to see and subsequently to follow. Maybe the Hemingway was a good project in 2015, maybe not. In 3 years, it wasn't built as proposed, and with sleight of hand, something entirely different ran a parallel course at the expense of countless hours by the citizens to show the misdirection by the owner, landowner, and the developer. Now the town and the citizens are being led to believe that the original will happen with it in 1 year extension, and yet the misdirection still continues. I'm going to divert from my speech, and I'm going to overlook the fact that we're going to call an LLC the same as a sole proprietorship, which we all know that that is not the truth, and that the application was filed by an individual and the property is owned by an LLC. 2306 states, quote, "The development shall be under the control of the applicant at the time of the application," and the application was filed by CA Ventures, and they're not a duly authorized by the parcel owner in the application. And it brings into question the global concern that is CA's role as a stakeholder in the Hemingway project. None of us knows any of that. Of greater significance than the application filed under the undeclared party is to understand that the parcel was transferred by the deed of trust in 127 of 17, confirming Pinnacle View Development LLC as the owner from the Hemingway Assisted Living LLC. This is foundational to the many topics discussed here tonight as we highlight various ordinances associated with Hemingway PAD and those ordinances' relationship to the definition of a property transfer. We begin with the language extracted from the 2015 minutes of the meeting of the staff notes to council, page 4, item 10, quote, "If the applicant does not construct the project proposed or sells the property, which it has been, the PAD and additional waivers become void and reverted back to C1, close quote. The project hasn't been constructed and the deed of trust recorded transferring ownership. Believe the mechanism has been set and forced to revert the property to C1. If a transfer is a transfer, then the Hemingway PAD was a transfer along with all the rest of the special use permits. For the third and hopefully final time, I want to refer the council to the map, the 300 signatures representing an overwhelming opposition to Hemingway, and whatever other name you want to associate to this parcel of land. We would like a clean slate, back to C1, something everyone counted on, no waivers, as Mr. Magazine pointed out, no variances, and then everyone can go home and count on the town as the ordinances and things have been written. People have relied on this long before this ever came about. Thank you.
Alinka Ziermont, followed by Ted Bell.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. I'm Alinka Ziermont, and we have lived in the area in question for 9 years. What happens to a special use permit over time? It is important to the citizens who have been close to this project for many months that we as a town, at minimum, acknowledge additional town ordinances which must be overlooked to permit an extension of this PAD in part or in whole. An excerpt from Ordinance 2.02F.1 reads as follows, and is specifically applied to the special use permit SU 2015-06, which is a component of the request for extension before us this evening. Ordinance 2.2 F.1 reads as follows: time limits. A building permit for the construction of any improvements allowed by any special use permit issued by the town council shall be secured within 6 months from the date of approval. Any lapsing of the building permit prior to completion of the improvements will cause the special use permit to become null and void. The PAD and the special use permit are two distinctly different elements which are routinely and mistakenly combined and discussed in the context of a singular element. While the PAD did not expire until May 21st, 2018, the special use permit SU 2015-06, in reference to the ordinance, expired November 21st, 2015. With no application made over time to facilitate any extension. It is for this reason that the special use permit is not up for extension and would rather require an entirely new application procedurally at this time. The elimination of the special use from consideration of extension in turn leaves a multi-family development to be governed by parking densities similar to that of R4 or R5, given we would now be discussing under the criteria of high-density multifamily housing and nothing more. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Ted Bell, followed by Brian Zub.
Mayor Kavanaugh, council members, I'm Ted Bell, permanent resident of Fountain Hills. Zoning variations. What happens when I sell my property? The Hemingway pad in zoning terms is the combination of 3 waivers in addition to the special use request. With the special use permit no longer in consideration due to its expired, we are left with the 3 zoning variances, which makes up the rest of the PAD justification. Ordinance 207B1, zoning variance, states in paragraph 6, every variance shall be the personal to the applicant, therefore, whatever shall be transferred shall run with the land only after construction of the structure or structures is completed. Simply stated, the original applicant, a sole proprietor, by warranty deeding the property to the sum of $10 to Pinnacle View Development LLC, by ordinance language, has effectively voided all published variances to the basic C1 zoning by transferring prior to the completion of the building. And we are therefore left with a base C1 zone plot. Thank you.
Thanks, Ted.
Brian Zub, followed by Jane Bell.
Thank you to the mayor and the city council for allowing me to speak. My name is Brian Zub, and I live right adjacent to this proposed development. I'm going to address the concerns that the neighbors have for the parking in the area. The 90 parking spaces that are allotted for this planned senior living hillside property make no consideration for the number of handicap spaces needed. The steep grades and 2 football field travel distances from the residences to the clubhouse, which is not centrally located to the property, will demand most residences drive from or to their units and to the clubhouse for all the amenities and services, thereby compounding the number of spaces necessary in proximity. The functional use defined by this plot requires significantly more vehicles on day 1 of operation than the Fountain Hill Senior Living Pad would have demanded and requires reconsideration. We all heard the town staff acknowledge 3 weeks ago stating that the parking rations are out of date and require adjustment. However, in the interim, they have no choice but to use what's been published. It's become comical at this point in our selection of what is and is not applicable and when it comes to ordinance enforcement. 3 weeks ago, we wouldn't give a homeowner a typical commercial wall on a base C1 plot line to hide the proposed 45-foot institution out the back window, yet when it comes to application of logic and reason and parking, we stick to what we know to be incorrect. Isn't that ironic? Using a realistic benchmark from a municipality whom had significant issues with parking rations very similar to the Fountain Hills and conducted an extensive study, I would reference the Thousand Oaks, California Ordinance 9-4.2402, which in summary would require 171 parking spaces as designated, which translate to date of a current deficit of 81 spaces. The longer-term compound issue here, as the secondary use that the attorneys for the CA Ventures have brought up in numerous meetings, that this potentially could end up as an apartment complex, and as so, it would require 203 parking spaces, and this leaves a deficit of 113 spaces right off the bat. Although approved in 2015, we know more today than we did then. Poor planning does not a crisis make, especially when we recognize the problem today and having every possible means before us to change the course and make the correction. This postage stamp site offers no contingency for a mistake in planning today, which, similar to the Fountain Hill Senior Living Pad's major deficiency, will inevitably force overflow parking onto Burkimo, Trevino, and Monterey, which are all 30-foot wide streets with no sidewalks. They're undulating, and they're in a residential neighborhood, and that's what the neighbors have expressed to me that they're concerned about the most. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jane Bell, followed by Tim Delaney.
Mayor and council members, I want to be very clear here this evening. This small band of residents who spoke here this evening, those sitting in the audience, and many, many more have poured their heart and soul into ensuring this town does not make a mistake at the gateway of our town. These folks here tonight represent more than 350 residents who signed petitions and many more who have vested interest in understanding just what kind of town Fountain Hills is going to become. This council took a major step in changing perceptions in this town 3 weeks ago by voting down the Fountain Hills Senior Living Pad. And here, not even a month later, we have come back as a group of citizens to read our own town governances aloud at this podium in an effort to keep us on the trajectory towards a better future. We are tired of the misdirection, we are tired of the deception, and personally, I'm tired of the hidden building heights for projects and undisclosed man-made cliffs at the backyard fence. And I'm tired of the game, and here's why. Tonight, we called a special session to review the pad extension application that somehow missed 3 previous council meetings, given it was filed on June the 1st. Tonight, we called a special session to review the pad extension that was filed by Major Eras and the CA Ventures on June the 1st, while they had a second pad application in the front of the town planning. Tonight, we called a special session to review the pad extension on the basis of a letter introduced to the packet missing not only a signature, but also a time and date stamp. Tonight, we called a special session to review the pad extension by its own definitions, changes in ownership, and the multiple town ordinances that even exist. Tonight, you, our council, are being asked to trust all the players in this game and the processes. Maybe it's time we take a little breath and stop trying to force the peg in the hole and hit the reset button here tonight and let C1, just that, C1. Please consider all that have been reviewed here this evening in your subsequent deliveries and vote as we look to continue the momentum of 3 weeks ago and make this town one that has a reputation of being accommodating to businesses, owners, developers, and residents alike, and not at the expense of our own governances, strategies, and reputation. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. Next.
Last speaker is Tim Delaney.
Good evening. I'm Tim Delaney. I'm a resident of Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm a commercial real estate broker over 25 years with Colliers International brokerage firm. I specialize in senior housing development and healthcare real estate. My background is in planning and zoning, college-educated guy, and I specialize in a niche business. And so I track developments all over the Southwest United States, and I was approached by this opportunity, and actually I want to tell you tonight is I'm probably the reason why this thing has not gotten off the ground to date, is that I introduced Dan to a potential buyer that I thought could, buy the project and complete it while Dan was busy in Colorado with some other developments. And as a result, we didn't realize that it was certainly going to get denied at the city council meeting for their, redesign plan. But the reason why it has not started construction is as a result of basically this thing being in escrow for a year and a half. So, I wouldn't cause blame on Dan for, asking for an extension, because a lot of it's been caused as a result of me and this buyer trying to get something done in a completely different design. Now, the design of the building was brought up a couple different times by people that it was not a efficient design, it doesn't work, it's dilapidated, old, whatever it is. It actually is a very common design, but there's a niche market for people to build product that type. It's called cluster housing. Typically, it's 6, 8, 10, 12 buildings, and they're all 10 units apiece. They can segregate the care needs by specific buildings, and it's great because it allows people to basically build in phases versus a huge, monstrous 200-unit project that costs us $30 to $50 million to build. So you can do it basically building by building, or 6 at a time, whatever you want to do. They're building this project in Goodyear, Chandler, Mesa, and in Phoenix. So it's not like it's a rare thing. It's very common. It's just not a lot of people are in that niche business. So, I guess what I asked you today is, that you basically take the blame off on me, not Dan. He just wants to continue with the project, what he started, and I just ask that you grant him the extension. So, thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Councilman Magazine has a question for you.
First of all, I don't blame Dan. I think he's a nice guy and a good builder. That's not what this is about. Did I hear you to say that the same project is being built in these other areas?
Correct.
Do you happen to know the size of the area of the lots that they're being built on?
Typically, the buildings are from 8,000 feet up to as much as 20,000 square feet per building.
No, I'm sorry. I'm asking the land. The land mass.
Anywhere from as small as 4 acres up to 10 acres in size. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, it's up to council now. Questions? Any further questions for Marissa? Vice Mayor.
Marissa, I don't know if this is your question or if it's the town attorney or the town manager. They were speaking about the deed transfer. Is the deed transfer, if it's the same ownership, is it considered the same ownership, just a change in title?
Mayor, members of the council, our position would be that it was not a sale of the property. It was just a organizational shift, so yes, it's just a transfer of title. And the inclusion of the $10 for sale and the deed transfer, that's standard language that's used throughout the industry.
And the second matter that was brought up was the PAD versus the special use permit, and the special use permit, which I too can read the ordinance, is supposed to be utilized in the 6-month period after it's issued. And then am I reading it correctly, seeing that if you have a PAD, that the special use permit isn't even really required? Am I missing something?
Mayor, member of the council, the file for the development at hand in 2015 contained language that the use for the project was going to be the use as provided in the special use permit. But the special use permit language in general that was cited to earlier is found in the zoning ordinance. and we had expressed language that said the terms of the PAD superseded the zoning ordinance, effectively the reason for the PAD. So therefore, the position is that the 3-year term of the PAD extended the length of the use permit as well. And including, at that time, council had made the decision, policy determination, that it was a 3-year term of the PAD with the possibility of 4 one-year extensions, envisioning in 2015 that this thing could potentially go for 7 total years.
Thank you.
Okay?
That's all I had, Marissa. Thank you.
Okay. And there's no more speakers, right? Okay, so with that, I will close the public hearing. Consideration of Resolution 2018-31, granting a 1-year extension to the Hemingway Planned Area Development Zoning Designation approved by Ordinance 15-05 and Special Use Permit SU 2015-06 to allow an assisted living facility on 5.75 acres located at 9700 North Saguaro Boulevard, AKA APN number 17610-811, case SU 2015-06. Any further council discussion? If not, council discussion? Looking for discussion, or if there's no discussion, a motion. Any councilman on the phone have any further discussion on this item?
No, Mayor, I do not.
What did he say?
No,
He
he
said
does
no?
not.
He's not. Okay. Vice Mayor?
Again, I'll go to council and to the town manager. If we extend this, are we breaking any laws?
Mayor, members of the council, no, we do not believe that there are any laws are being broken. The extension was envisioned when the ordinance was passed originally.
Then I was reading that correctly. Thank you. So here's my dilemma. This is exactly the same project that was passed in 2015, 7-0, with only one person in opposition to it. And, of course, the economy plays a huge part in what we're doing. The C1 project, we had I'm going to say it was 12 years ago, we had a real nice shopping center that was proposed there that didn't even get off the ground because of the economy, and it's the only reason that they didn't build it. But since then, this same council that approved the Hemingway Project 7-0 is the same council that brought to the town the question of a property tax, and the property tax was voted down 66%. And I hear every bit of that 66%. But the problem is that we're going to have to find somehow to get some revenue going in this town, and I have a fly that I might catch it here in a minute. I'm not crazy. But somehow this town's going to have to start generating some revenue. And so we don't want a tax and we don't want development, so what are we going to do? Sit and go broke? Because those are the 3 options we've got. And if you can tell me that I've got that incorrect, I've studied this hard for a long time. And I think we would be doing an injustice to the town as Fountain Hills. I think we'd be doing injustice to the Hemingway project. And I hear every word of every concern that's been brought to us, and we denied a project 2 weeks ago that I don't know wasn't a better looking project than the Hemingway, but the Hemingway project is a more residential looking project than one big building. So I can say that I will be supporting extending this project.
Any other council discussion?
Yes, Mayor.
Councilman Magazine?
My colleague, Councilman Brown, said we don't want development, and I take issue with that. We've approved a lot of development, and we will in the future. The question is the development the kind of development we want in the right place? It's fair to say that we voted 7-0 in favor of the previous project, Hemingway project. It's a fair question. I've given this a lot of thought over the last number of months. I've been on the council 3.5 years now. And in my view, we have, and I've been part of this, approved too many zoning requests, variances, special use permits, and so on, which then renders the original intent almost unrecognizable. I voted in the majority, 7-0. I don't know that I would have done it today. We have a plan. It's been pointed out that it's, 8 years old or something like that? I don't think that's germane to the issue. We have a plan. And if we want to change the plan, and we will go through a process, it will go before the Strategic Planning Advisory Commission for their recommendation. It'll come to us, and the public will have an opportunity to speak to that plan, to changes or whatever. So the fact that it's 8 years old, to me, is really irrelevant. I'm going to oppose the one-year extension for the same reasons that I voted against the project originally. It's in violation of the plan. It's in violation of the zoning. And we have an almost unanimous citizenry that is against this project. Now, having said that, I said before, and I'll say it again, I thank the developer. I think it's a pretty good-looking project. I just think it's a good-looking project in the wrong place. And it violates as I said, the zoning and the plans. So I'm going to make a motion to revert the zoning back to C1 effective immediately.
So motion on the floor, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. You want to do a roll call?
Councilmember Magazine?
Aye.
Councilmember Toles?
Nay.
Councilmember Leger?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brown?
Nay.
Councilmember DePorter?
Nay.
And Mayor Kavanaugh?
Nay.
Mayor, 2-4. Nay.
All right, so I'm looking for, do you want to make a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve Resolution 2018-31, granting a one-year extension to the Hemingway Planned Area Development zoning designation approved by Ordinance 1505 and Special Use Permit SU 2015-06 to allow the assisted living facility on 5.75 acres located at 9700 North Saguaro Boulevard, also known as APN 16-10-81.
I have a motion on the floor, do I have a second?
I second that.
Okay, that was Art. Okay, I have a motion and a second, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Toles?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brown?
Aye.
Councilmember Magazine?
Nay.
Councilmember Leger?
Nay.
Councilmember DePorter?
Aye.
And Mayor Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Mayor, 4-0, approved.
Okay, and
4-2, sorry. 4-2.
final agenda is just a motion to adjourn. And a second?
Second.
All in favor? We are adjourned.
Aye.